As you'll have picked up from the day so far, and particularly from Maria's presentation, Manchester feels like quite a special place at the moment. To me, there's a real sense of global ambition here. I grew up in Manchester, and I moved back about 18 months ago, and it feels like such a different place to the Manchester I knew at least 30 years ago. When I left the museum, this museum, used to call itself the Northwest Museum of Science and Industry. Now we're just Museum of Science and Industry. We're part of a national museum group, the Science Museum Group. And when I took up my post, I went to see the leader of the council, Sir Richard Leese, and asked him, amongst other things, what advice he'd give me for, as a new museum director, taking on this fabulous job. And he said, along the lines of, don't think regional, don't think national, think international. And so that was a really clear steer from the top of the city about Manchester and how it sees itself now. I'm going to speak briefly about a big international initiative that the city's taken on and that we're in the middle of. And whilst I personally have to confess to some ambivalence about the kind of big year of initiatives, having in previous lives been part of at least one of them that didn't feel very real, this one feels like it's got real resonance locally. And I feel really strongly that whenever you do international work, as several speakers have already said, it has to be right for your region, it has to be right for your organisation, it has to be right for your place, if it's to have lasting impact. That said, having spent the last 30 years or so in London, I'd say that working with the grain of a regional agenda is so much easier if you're not based in London. And it's so much easier if you're in a place with a really strong local identity. Manchester kind of knows its story and can tell it in a way that the part of London I worked in until 18 months ago really didn't. I guess there's always the question, as we've touched on already, about when times are hard and resources are stretched, getting on board with an international agenda, whether that's a priority for museums. This is a photo of when the Chinese First Lady visited our museum in October last year, looking around the museum with the Lord Mayor. That state visit to Manchester came about very much as a result of the city's long-standing relationship with China, which was mentioned earlier, and particularly a 30-year partnership with the city of Wuhan. And just this month, until recently, I think we had three dates in the diary for just the month of March, when different groups of dignitaries from China were going to be visiting the museum. And just corralling the resource for that takes time and energy. And this visit certainly took about 2 weeks out of all our lives. But it was a fantastic opportunity for Manchester to showcase itself, not just here, but at the other institutions in the city. And my experience is that where there's regional support, then the international links help with local ones too, community links, business links, political links. So it can really help position the museum at the heart of the place. So 2 or 3 years ago now, before I came back to the city, Manchester bid successfully to host a major international science conference. It's called Euroscience Open Forum, or ESOF, and it's held every 2 years. So you might say, so what? The city hosts conferences the whole time. But this is Europe's largest science conference. It has about 4,500 delegates, and not just from Europe, but from all over the world. And it's very, very broad. It has science, engineering, technology, policy, business entrepreneurs. So it was a very big deal for the city. And it's never before been held in the UK. These are the countries it's been held in. And hosting the conference gives you the right to the title European City of Science. And each hosting city is expected to find its own way of celebrating science throughout the city in a way that's going to create a legacy with its citizens. So it's potentially a very powerful piece of place branding to host a science and business conference in a city whose USP is about the meeting of science and industry, the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution. And the benefits for any city hosting this conference are along the lines of improved business links, improved global research links, the money, the economic impact of hosting the conference, and all the related activity that goes around it. There's something like 20 or 30 conferences coming to Manchester on the back of this particular conference. But most importantly for us and for the discussion today, it gives an opportunity to promote careers in science to the citizens of the city, and an opportunity to engage young people, particularly with science, in terms of skills and careers. And for Manchester, that was really important because not only is there this very strong link in the DNA between science and industry, and it's what the city's all about, but it's also a city whose current economic strategy has a really strong science strand. So the strategy that it's just launched for the next 10 years talks about building on the city's really great strengths in science, advanced manufacturing, creative industries, digital industries. And it explicitly says, Manchester in 2016 is European City of Science. We will use this as a springboard for exploiting our research strengths over the next decade. So it's a really strong local, regional statement about why this conference and this title is important. The University of Manchester and the city got together to put forward the bid, but many other partners are now backing it. So UK government, research councils, a number of key sponsors, the Wellcome Trust. And the title of the conference sums up the USP that Manchester feels it has. It's called Science as Revolution, from Cottonopolis to Graphene City. And the conference themes can build on Manchester's research strengths. So the 4-day conference comes to Manchester in July. And unlike other cities, Manchester took the decision not just to celebrate it publicly over the period of the conference, but to celebrate it across a whole year, because that would be a better way to achieve a legacy. So this campaign began last year with posters up across the city. I chair a City of Science steering group, whose role it is to oversee the programme for the year with the aim of celebrating science as part of Manchester life, and the celebrations culminate in July this year, so there's much that's yet to come. So just going to give a few examples. We at the museum are launching an exhibition called Wonder Materials about graphene, the revolutionary two-dimensional material identified by Russian scientists working at the university in Manchester. Science is an international activity. But obviously we're a science museum, so it's not really very surprising that we'll be doing science and engaging people around science. What's really great is that Manchester already has a tradition of real partnership within the cultural sector particularly. And as a result, there are so many other organisations celebrating science. So this is a piece from The Imitation Game, a wonderful show that's just opened at Manchester Art Gallery. Go and see it if you can, featuring the work of 8 international artists exploring how machines imitate life. The National Football Museum's featuring a great gaming exhibition about how the virtual world influences the real one. Citywide schools are promoting science. We've got a day in July when young people are coming together across Greater Manchester to plan and deliver science events for their communities. Annual events like the Manchester Day Parade, which attracts about 80,000 visitors, this year has a science theme, Eureka. And all sorts of great ideas have been inspired by this opportunity. So there's a big initiative led by University of Manchester scientists to get the whole of Manchester, schools and maker communities and anybody, involved in building a giant robot orchestra out of disused household equipment, which will, we hope, play at the conference. And hundreds of people have already started to get involved in this. It's really captured people's imaginations and got all sorts of people together who wouldn't be otherwise working together. And all sorts of things are still being planned, so it's a work in progress, and it's much too early to say what the impact will be. I have to say that there's a bigger gap than any of us would want between the ambition for the year and the resources and the lead times that we have. But it seems to me that there are several real benefits that being European City of Science has brought to the city and to us. First of all, it's a national event. It's brought national profile for science engagement. So organisations like the Royal Society that don't normally stray outside London are wanting to get involved. Wellcome Trust are giving funding. We're related to that, seeing the city, I think, through an external lens. And that's forcing us to sort of sharpen up our messaging a bit. It helps the city to tell a stronger story and builds our confidence. Perhaps most importantly, though, having the spotlight on the city's science is making us work better together. So the Robot Orchestra has catalysed partnerships between the universities in Manchester. And we're seeing shopping centres coming to us wanting to ask how can they get involved in showcasing science. So those are really exciting things, and if we can keep building on those kinds of conversations, then there's some real potential, I think, for building an infrastructure that can really inspire hundreds of scientists and young scientists across the city. So finally, just wanted to leave you maybe with 3 questions that are, to an extent, exercising us at the moment. So a kind of local question. In small institutions, in hard times, how can we really make our international collaborations work for our local audiences? And in this case, how can we get the conference interacting with the city in a really meaningful way? It's quite tough. A regional question. Can this type of international designation really have lasting impact? So in the case of Liverpool, being the European capital of culture, as I think it's already been alluded to, it is widely accepted that there was a demonstrable long-term positive effect in terms of cultural participation and vibrancy and tourism and perceptions. With the London Olympics, I think the jury's still out on the sports participation side of things, even if it's clearly regenerated a huge tract of London. And of course, with this event particularly, there's an international question, because in July, we'll still be European City of Science, but we may not be European anymore. So that'll be a really interesting topic of discussion at the conference. Thank you.